Well, I'm running out of ideas for thumbnails, so I figured I would just put another one of myself up for today. Yeah, I'm seeing everybody uh, go over their ideas about the goings on in the world, and in case anybody had missed my most recent community post or the most recent live I did right before this one, I figured I would just more or less go over some things that I see occurring in the future. And it's not going to be probably what people think it is for several reasons, and I will cover those, of course. Um, you'll have to pardon me today. I woke up with some really, really horrible heartburn, so I'm sort of waiting on that to kind of, dissipate a little bit. But yeah, my stomach is pretty rough right now. Pretty rough. But in light of everybody else saying what they're saying, I guess I'll come on here and say something too. Last night, originally, I had wanted to get on here and read another segment for you all of my audio book, but that ship didn't sail, so maybe tonight. Maybe tonight. Maybe if I can charge this up after I do this, maybe I'll read it tonight. Or maybe tomorrow. But anyway, here's the deal with this entire thing. I think that people are getting the wrong messaging behind this, but I'm talking about with this whole entire event because it boils down to various different dynamics involved. And it takes really two to tango. And by that I mean it takes the Eastern and the Western elites. Now, you've got one set who are very, very haphazard and sloppy and arrogant and prideful and hubristic, and then you have another set that's a bunch of careful planners. Oh, they're evil. They're evil. They're wicked. They're diabolical, and they're disgusting. They're disgusting. I'm talking about the CCP. They're both evil, but one is one is a lot more stupid than the other in their arrogance and hubris. They seriously think that uh, they're going to use some old hag to provoke China into doing something on their terms instead of, thinking that China's going to actually react on their own terms, which is it's like projecting. If you understand what I mean when I say projecting, by projecting, these leaders in the West, I'm talking about the elites that run the puppets, but the puppets are also run by China. It's hard to explain that. I've explained that all before. If you want to know more about that, go watch my past lives. The Chinese MSS, yes, they do have a lot of these Western leaders in their pockets who they have compromised doing disgusting things with a certain class of people. And they've also bribed others to do their bidding. But at the end of the day, these Western leaders also take orders from Western elites. Now, this goes back to the whole Genovese and Colombo family concept that I've gone over ad nauseum, and I'm not going to go over it again. If you all have been with me this long, then you know what I'm getting at. Here's the thing. These Western elites have told this this old hag to fly over there in the first place. No, no real objective behind it. Just go there. Just go there. Do whatever. Okay? I mean, really, there's nothing anywhere that stipulates what any of this is even really for. Nothing. It's not been made public, so what's the point? The point is to stick a finger in the eye of China, to try to provoke them. But China, who has planned to take the West down for decades, along with their other allies, of course, like Russia and everyone else, uh, why would they piss everything away that they had set up over some old hag, unless, of course, it was their time to act anyway? Unless it was their time to act anyway. Think about it. Think about it. Does that even make sense? If you're China and you're, moving logistics in and you're, if your troops are not all on their jump off points and ready to go at a moment's notice, then why are you going to overreact to a situation that is ultimately very petty? Wouldn't you handle that in a different way that is more flexible, that goes with your plans a lot better? I mean, think about it. Okay, here's the other thing. We haven't had our economic and financial collapse just yet. I'm talking about the big one where it's set in stone. We've collapsed. Everything's gone to shit. The whole entire internal conflict that comes like immediately thereafter, exactly like how I depicted in my Syrian-style internal conflict thing. We haven't had that yet either. That is a very good metric by which you can make educated personal assessments on anything you see going on in the world. Plot twists, folks. Plot twists. Plot twists. Plot twists. By plot twists, I mean things are going to change in ways that people are not even expecting. People are expecting, very specific things to happen, it sounds like, when I watch a lot of different things. You're not going to be able to call it that easily, I'm afraid. I really, no, I just don't see it. Not, like I said, not unless they're ready to go all the way now. If they're ready to go all the way now, that means that all their forces are literally sitting on their jump-off points. They've got the call to muster. They've mustered up. They're sitting on their jump-off points ready to go. Kind of like in my stories and kind of like in my documentary series. That means they're all waiting on their jump-off points because they're not going to do anything overtly to us unless they're ready to go all the way. All the way. Now, what's more likely to occur is that, they're not going to, tolerate that. No, but they're not going to react the way you think because they're more careful. You cannot underestimate your enemies. That is the dumbest thing anybody could ever do, is underestimate their enemy, especially if you're Mystery Babylon. Yeah, you better not be underestimating anybody because you're the first to go if you're Mystery Babylon, which we are. So, let's look, I'm here to warn people. If people don't like the way I give warnings, then go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. All I'm here to do is to warn people and to try to help people see how things fit together. That's all I've ever done. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care about the East. I don't care about the West. Yeah, I live in the West, but that doesn't mean I like the system. I'm not going to get behind the system because the system is evil. Same with the CCP, same with the Russian political oligarchy, same with whoever. They're all evil, all of them. It doesn't matter if they're East or West or whatever, they're all evil. It's the common person against the elites, wherever they live, and whichever elites that they're governed by, I guess you could call that. Again, I have a lot on my mind. I'm trying to place it all in a coherent order. My stomach is really jacked up right now. I just took some Tums. I'm trying to wait for those to work all the way. But I just felt it was very important to get on here and discuss these things. Now, let's say because we haven't had a full blown collapse like the big one, we haven't had the big one happen yet, the big collapse. Let's say because we haven't had the big collapse happen and we haven't had the internal conflict just yet, let's say something did happen. Do you think you're going to know about it? I mean, really, do you think you're going to know about it? Do you think that, okay, what if something did happen? Well, what if China calls the bluff of the Americans and they do something militarily and they down, the plane? They down the plane. Well, that's like a red phone moment. That's a red phone moment. That's when the leaders of Washington are going to be calling Xi over there in Beijing and saying, oh man, what can we do to pull back from this crisis and blah, blah, blah. We don't want to go to war and blah, blah, blah. Then guess what could happen? They could turn right around after that and say, and lie to the American people and say, oh, hey, it was an accident. There was an accident with the plane. I could see them doing that. If China called their bluff and said, you know what, you guys, we're sick of you guys, effing around over here, and they shoot and they down the plane, and maybe did some other things too. Do you think the American regime is going to tell its people about that? No, because they're going to want to do what? They're going to want to save face. Because they're prideful, they're arrogant, they're going to want to save face. They're going to turn around and say, and they're not going to tell everybody that they played a dangerous game of chicken and they got ran off the road. They're going to tell everybody instead that, oh, there was an accident. Oh, the plane, it crashed. It malfunctioned and crashed in the Pacific. That's the type of stuff that they do when they get called out on their shit. They make up different shit when they have been called out on their shit. Plot twists. That's just one example of one type of thing that could occur. If I were a betting man, if I were a betting man, I don't gamble anymore, I don't bet, but if I was, that would be one of three different outcomes. The other two outcome would be, okay, instead, China doesn't do what the Western elites hope they would do and goad them into a outright whatever. China doesn't react the way that they hoped. Here's the other option. Instead, China pulls the plug on the petrodollar and collapses us as revenge, because that still fits within the scope of their plans, and it's not an overt type of act of revenge. What if they did that instead? What if they collapsed us financially and economically as revenge for that whole little stunt, for that entire stunt that they're doing? What if they just collapse us financially? What if they do it that way instead? Knowing what we know about the way they act, how insidious and sneaky they are, I could see that happening too. So that would cause the collapse to occur, and then the internal conflict, which is, again, the best metric by which you can measure other events. So that could be the beginning of the economic and financial collapse, maybe. In addition to the other option, which I listed before, where they pull back from the brink and they make up some bullshit lie that there was an accident, even if China called their bluff and did something. Like that would be the pullback. The first option is a pullback where they lie about it, make up that there was an accident, or some other bullshit. The second one is China allows it, but they do retaliate for it, but they do it in a, they're not going to let a single fly, this old hag, this fly, they're not going to let a single fly into the ointment, which is their plans. They're carefully laid plans. Do you think that they're going to let some old hag slip them up and divert them from their plans if they're not fully, ready at their jump-off points, all their logistics are lined up for it. Remember, this would have to be the biggest invasion in the history of war. Do you think that they're going to let some old hag throw them off their game? Hell no. Hell no. You're crazy, man. You're crazy. No. So what if instead they just retaliate in a different way that fits within their plans, where they collapse our economy? Well, that there's an option. And then there's option 3, that they are ready to go. They do have their men mustered and assembled. They're all sitting on their CCP properties. They're all sitting across the border in Mexico, Canada. They're all on their landing ships. They're ready to go. They're ready to rock and roll. They got their Navy in the Pacific ready to sink our Navy and whatever. That's then, only then would they react in that sort of a way that people are thinking they're going to react. Because anything else wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make no sense at all. People are like really, really like, I don't know where people come up with some of the ideas that they have. It's just, but I don't think that people see how all these things fit together. Yes, some of these puppets are in the pocket of China. Not because China likes them. China hates them. But China has compromised them because their MSS has set them up to be caught doing nasty things with, certain classes of people. I can't say a whole lot, you guys, because it's YouTube. So some of them have been compromised by the Chinese MSS, and that is why that some of our leaders are in their pockets. They're owned by China. Yes, true enough. Others have been bribed. Because I've told you, and I've told you, and I've told you, and I've told you that they're what? They are total whores for money, too. For money. They worship mammon. So, if China's bribing them to do China's bidding, too, apart from just the Western satanic banking elites, running them, they're doing deeds for China because China's paying them. Or they've compromised them. So, but that doesn't mean China likes them or is going to protect them or do anything for them. No. See, the CCP is part of the Eastern elites. They hate the West. They hate its elites. The Western elites see China and Russia as rivals. The Cold War, I used to think the entire Cold War East versus West thing was a weird paradigm when I was younger, but now it more than makes sense. It actually is the way it is. No wonder they could do something like that so seamlessly after World War II. No wonder they could do something so seamlessly, because that's how it's set up. It really is that way. Because if you truly believed that the whole world was ran by the Western elites, I'm saying the entire world, then we would be under the one world government. There's more than one set of elites, and that's evident. It's painfully evident. They're trying to unify the world under a single set of rulers, the 10 kings and the beast. That hasn't happened yet because the elites have never been a unified front, and they won't be, but for a very short time. And the beast is the one that unifies them. Okay, the 10 kings. All right, and the 10 kings are going to be 10 victorious Eastern kings that destroy the West, who is unprepared for a major war. They're going to destroy and conquer the West in World War III, and the beast is going to come, and now that the West is gone, is going to make a covenant with Israel, because the West isn't there to protect Israel, because the West has been destroyed by the East. So the beast is going to have to step in and be like, I'll save you from these 10 kings. The 10 kings he just flattered to get his power from, because he's a liar and a deceiver, and he's going to lie and deceive Israel too. So he's going to play one off against the other, basically, after World War III, which he's going to play, I'm sure, a key role in putting an end to with his flatteries and everything else. Now, that will be the one time when the whole world is unified. I'm talking about the whole modern world under one single set of rulers, okay? It's not going to happen until after World War III, Because after World War II, there really was an Eastern and Western bloc. Two different blocs. There really was, ruled by two different types of leaders. They've never been unified. You know, they worked towards it. They had overarching goals in some different areas that they've collaborated on, but they've never achieved unification. You know, they've never been able to achieve that. You know, even in the West, there's different sets within the Western elites that vie and jockey for power, because greed and sin and envy and pride and lust for power makes people stab each other in the back, because Satan can't help himself and he eats his own. He doesn't protect his own, he eats his own. He only protects his own when it suits him to do so, because other evil people would only protect a different evil person if it suits their own agendas, which is why it appears that they are a unified front when in fact they're really not. They really don't give a shit about each other, because there is no love in evil. There's only greed and pride and envy and lust. That is what evil is. So people get things twisted, and they think that evil is something that is buddy-buddy with each other, but that's only when it benefits themselves. That's only when it benefits themselves. There's no love in evil. I mean, I don't know where people ever, thought that was a thing, but evil is out for evil. It doesn't care about each other. It only cares about itself. Only when it benefits itself to help other evil does evil help evil. Otherwise, evil eats its own. And that translates into the elites. These elites of the East and elites of the West utterly hate one another. But the silver spoon in the ass, pretty hands-having, never worked a day in their lives, Western elites, are a bunch of little sniveling punks. They are. They're punks. They're punks. They're punks. And they're going to get obliterated by warlords. Warlords. And that is how you get things happening as they happen in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, and other books, but in the book of Revelation, with your 10 victorious Eastern kings. Now, I'm not going to speculate on who's the beast and this and that, because really, there's so many different contenders, but I don't think that it's anybody that people think. I mean, I think that there's a lot of intrigue around that might not necessarily be proven by just a few little, really ultimately in the grand scheme of things, potentially insignificant details, really. I mean, because there's a lot of different things that could be the case here, because we haven't, as a whole, seen anybody in particular step up into a position like that and take the lead on the world stage yet. We haven't seen it. And I really think that most people are going to be surprised. I really do. I think when we finally see the beast who will come to power after World War III, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised, including myself, because I'm sure it'll be somebody that none of us ever imagined. It's not going to be some American. It's going to be some foreigner. I really am firmly believing that. It's not going to be an American. I can tell you that. So Babylon is going to be destroyed. It's going to be destroyed, and it's going to be destroyed very, very quickly when World War III destruction of Babylon occurs. So I'm telling people, there's a lot of hype out there, and a lot of not all intel that people see is good intel. Remember that. There's a lot of mis and disinfo and psyops. Everything I've always said in every live that I've warned people about in every live, always remember, there is a lot of hype and mis and disinfo and psyops and the whole gamut of different things that are out there to mislead or dislead or just utterly completely deceive altogether entirely. So you have to do your research. You can't just roll with everything you hear. You gotta do your research. You gotta do your research. I try to make certain things easy for people when it comes to the realm of what I specialize in here with like the war related stuff, with the international war situations with our enemies, with China, with Russia. That's my whole entire premise here, is that I'm warning people about the nations that are going to destroy us. They're our enemies. They're going to destroy us. Americans are about the most foolhardy, prideful people ever. They don't think that they can be destroyed, but they will be. That's not to say our enemies aren't going to be destroyed either, but they're not going to be destroyed until the very end, because it's written. It's written. I've seen like a couple different people say that. Well, God doesn't care about such and such. They're still going to be destroyed. Yeah, at the very end, we're stuck with them until then. So that's why I warn people about them here. That's why I warn people about them here. So, that if people don't, if they don't agree with that, then get on down the road. Get on down the road. I'm here to warn us all about our enemies and why they're the way they are, why they're going to do what they're going to do, how they are doing what they're going to do, and what makes it even possible for them to be able to do what they're going to do. Like their whole doctrines, their logistics, their planning, their very careful long-term planning. Everything. Again, come out of her, my people. If you're still emotionally tied to the Babylonian system, then you're in the wrong. I live in this land, but I have no ties to the system. A system that is co-opted by the Western satanic elites, that's being infiltrated by the Eastern elites, that has been utterly subverted and infiltrated against us, the common people. I have no ties to anything like that. Yeah, okay, was I in the army? Well, yeah, but, you live, you learn. You live, you learn. I thought I was doing something good for everybody. But when I found out that I was being used, it sort of does a number on your psyche. It really, really, really F's with your whole entire psyche to know that the things you did in the name of of America, you did in fact do for enriching a small group of uber rich pricks. These little pretty hand having, never worked a day in their lives pricks. So think about that. I look at what I'm doing now as almost like a form of redemption for some of the things that I maybe have done in my past. This feels like it's a form of redemption in a way. It's like a form of making amends, which is part of our biblical existence as Christians. We should always make amends for wrongs, or if we've wronged anybody, we should always try to make amends. That's biblical. Go read about it. So I'm basically making this to caution them against jumping to conclusions and projecting. Our enemies play chess. They don't play checkers. They're not going to get they're not going to get offended necessarily in the ways that we think that they'd get offended, because they think differently than we think. They don't think like we think. They have a whole different mindset than the elites of the West. By thinking that they're going to react a very specific, certain way to some, old hag flying over there, that's projecting onto them what we would react to if the shoe was on the other foot. Like, that's something that we would take offense to, but that doesn't mean that that's something China's going to take that sort of level of offense to. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Oh, yeah, well, sure, they're going to be offended, but they're not going to necessarily, scuttle their whole freaking, multi-decade plans over that. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? That's about the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. Ever. Ever. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. I'm telling people, if you want to understand your enemies, you have to try to get into your enemies' heads. You have to try to get into their heads. They don't think like other people think. They have their own line of reasoning, their own ways of thinking, their own ways of doing things. They're from an entirely different culture than we're from. That's what people forget. People are forgetting that. Different parts of the world hold true to different cultures and different beliefs and different everything, different practices. I'm a world traveler, or I was. I've been to 7 different countries. I've seen different practices and ways of thinking. I've had to assimilate in some instances to their ways while I was in different places because you want to blend in and you want to get along the best that you can. You don't want to offend if you can help it, you don't want to offend when you're in another place. Obviously, it's obvious. You don't want to do that. But I'm saying that to say this. Different places have different cultures and practices and ways of thinking than we have. What we might think is worthy of offense might not be a big deal to somebody else, or vice versa, or vice versa. People have to take things into consideration. There's different dynamics. As I've always said, there's dynamics and layers and levels to these things. There's nothing cut and dry. There's nothing cut and dry. Expect your plot twists. Expect plot twists. And that has as much to do with what the Western elites want to see as it does what the Eastern elites want to see. Here's the plot twist, like I said earlier, there's 3 different ways that this could, end up. They might crash our economy instead of reacting how we thought that they would react overtly. Or they might call our bluff and react overtly. And then we might try to pull back from it and then lie about it and say it was an accident. Like I said, there's different things like that could occur. Consider that. Because we haven't had our big collapse, and we haven't had our civil conflict yet. We haven't had our civil conflict, both of which are in my work. If you go and look at the internal conflict playlist, that first video is highlighting all of that. And then in the last video at the very end, then we're invaded when we're so weak that the austere-minded Chinese and Russians really don't have to spend all that much effort or money or anything else to come in here. So, and that has as much to do with their state of mind as everything else does. Could they crush us right now? Well, absolutely they could. Absolutely. Because we have this pansy-ass, woke, depleted, hollowed-out military. It's not the same military. It's not your father's military. It's not even my military from when I was in. When me and my friends were in, it was a professional military. And that was years ago. This is now. We're talking about now. It is a hollowed-out, woke, depleted military. And you know what? Americans should be ashamed of themselves because they let it happen. They have no one to be angry at other than themselves. Because the moment we started tolerating all of this as a collective, this stuff was allowed to run rampant. It was allowed to run rampant, and now we're at the point where we're at now, So, again, it takes 2 to tango. We allowed it. So, Let me see who's all in here. Let me see who's all in here. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Mary and Brandy and hey, Jennifer. Shadow Tracks, Orange Blossom, and uh, Tritium, huh? Yeah. We had tritium in our collimator. Our collimator was what we used to use to help set the artillery piece so we could get accurate shooting on the gun line. Tritium is in a lot of military optical pieces. Hold on. Let me see who else is in here. Yeah, the Saudis and the Chinese are doing their petro-yuan renminbi. They're going to replace the petrodollar with OPEC, and it'll be a petro-yuan and perhaps a commodities ruble through the CIPS system, which is the Chinese version of SWIFT, and the Russian SPFS, which is the Russian version of SWIFT, which China and Russia are the two leaders of the Eurasian bloc, the BRICS Plus, which is a direct competitor to the West, of the Western Economic Forum, as well as, they could even morph into the new UN. Nobody knows, but I'm talking the new UN when the 10 kings, the 10 Eastern kings, the 10 Eastern victorious kings seize control of the world post-World War III after the defeat of the West. That's biblical. Let me see. Who else? Well, no, Shadow Mask. There's been a lot of diplomacy between China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia used to be in our camp, but they've slowly been turned and integrated into the Eurasian bloc. There's been a lot of diplomatic progress, and that's why the Saudis are doing a petro-yuan with China, and also agreeing to do one for rubles with the SPFS system as well. So, yeah, China and Russia are making their deals with Saudi and pulling them into it. They already got Iran, so there's a whole bunch of oil there. They're gonna just get all of OPEC to join their BRICS Plus. That's the end game with that. So things are changing. Nothing ever stays the same in the world. Nothing stays the same. The West is gone. It's over. The sun has set on the West. The Western elites just don't know it yet. They just don't understand it yet. They're trying to do things that they got away with in the 90s, but it's a different world now. It's a different world. It's a different world. Things have changed. It's not the 90s anymore. China is the new world hegemon. They're the new world superpower, for better or for worse. And I hate it, because I hate the CCP. But for better or for worse, facts have no bias. That's the way it is. Sorry, but that's how it is. So, facts have no bias. I'm not biased. I just call things the way I see it. I call what I see. That's not biased. Sorry. Just because I live here doesn't mean that, I've got a problem with anybody. I do have problems with evil, but I'm not biased. If we were still the top dog, I'd be talking us up. Hell, you even saw in my last live, I even told somebody, well, no, we were still pretty strong until about, the early 2010s, because somebody said we've been weaker for longer, and I said, well, no, we were actually still pretty strong until about that point. I was talking us up because it was a fact. Yeah, we were still pretty strong until about then, but we're weak now. We have lost our position in the last 5 years, and that's a fact. Facts have no bias. Facts have no bias. So, you got to call things, you got to call reality, what it is. If you see reality, then be real. Call it out. If you see reality, you call out reality. Real recognizes real, as the saying goes, And it's a true saying, Let me see here. Who else is in here? Yes, and Ken, my friend. I wanted to share your video, but I couldn't because it won't let me. You were very right. We are not as strong as we think we are because we're no longer the world superpower. It's China. It's China. China has done all sorts of things to us and they continue to do all sorts of things to us that are going to utterly wreck us as they shape the battlefield. They're shaping the battlefield for them to do their invasion. There's still other things that have to occur, but Ken did a very good video. I'm going to recommend his video like he recommended mine. So I'm going to recommend Ken's newest video because it was pretty good. Ken is correct. We are not as strong as we think, and that's what I've always been trying to tell people because it's a fact. It's a fact. Like it or not, it's the reality. It's a fact. So it is what it is. We've got the hollow, depleted out woke military. China's got the gung-ho killer military. Whether we like it or not, that's what it is. That's the way it is. Same with Russia. Russia's pretty hardcore right now, too. Hey, all smiles. I hope things are going better for you. I really, really, really do. Just hang in there with everything. Miriam Barnabas, good to see you. Well, everybody, Shadow Mask and that's right. And Jennifer, my dear, and El Romero, and who else? It looks like everybody. Well, yeah, y'all, I might come back on here tonight, and I might do another reading from my audiobook where I'm showing you all what this invasion looks like, what it will look like, what it'll move like, what it'll be like, why it'll be like that, exactly why it'll be like that, the logistics behind it possible. I'm putting everything into this, everything, and it's going to be a very long project. It's going to be very, very long, very long. But pay very close attention to every last detail of it because it's there to help you attempt to navigate this sort of thing, just like all my other work is. All my other work. All of it. I appreciate everybody coming. Thank you for listening to me. I know it's not one of my better ones because, again, I have some heartburn today and I woke up like that. It's a pretty disgusting feeling. Got some heartburn, so I appreciate y'all listening to me while I'm going through all this. But yeah, I'll try and come back on later tonight after I charge the phone up long enough to where I can read. And I may come on again and do a reading. But I just caution everybody, not all intel is good intel. There's a lot of bad mis and disinfo woven into a lot of different things. And remember, this regime lies about everything. I don't put it past them to lie about any details involved in all of this, and including all the way up to saying that there was some sort of an accident if China called our bluff and said, you know what, we're going to down your thing because you didn't listen to us, and, you guys ain't going to do nothing about it because you guys are a bunch of punks. And that's when the red phone call hotline thing would happen, and then they would turn around and lie to the American people so they could save face. I see them doing something like that, if not the other two options I've already mentioned earlier. So, expect the unexpected. Plot twists. There's two sets of elites. Takes two to tango. It's all incumbent on what they decide to do about it. But don't expect China to do what you think they're going to do. They have a totally different line of reasoning. They have totally different plans, totally different thoughts, different objectives, different everything. They're going to act within the scope of their plans. They're going to do what they feel is most advantageous, not what we think they think, are going to do. It could be totally different from what people expect. I don't see anything happening. I really don't. I don't see anything substantial happening, I should put it that way. I don't see anything really major coming out of any of this because we still haven't had our collapse and we still haven't had our internal conflict. I don't think anything's going to happen, everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I really don't. Not anything substantial. Nothing substantial. Nothing major. Nothing that's going to kick off World War III, but, would China crush and collapse our economy over it to punish us? Yeah, I could see them doing that because that still fits within the scope of their plans. They're weaponizing their banks. They're the richest nation on earth. They have the biggest gold holdings. They're doing a petro-yuan renminbi. They're going to collapse our economy because they've weaponized our banks, or their banks rather. They've weaponized their banks to crater investments. I'm talking about the small banks that they've been going after to consolidate power that I've already told you guys about was part of Xi's little, power consolidation trip with trying to get everything under the big banks while removing the small banks, which would also crater Western investors who put money into those banks, which will create a domino effect and hurt our economy. So that's the type of things I see happening. They might just pull the whole plug on the petrodollar, and we'll go from something to totally broke basically overnight. If they do that. And that would still fit within the scope of their plans as far as shaping the battlefield to weaken us even further. Because remember, they're very austere-minded. And they might not react the way we think that they're going to react. Because they have a different plan, and they have different goals, they have different objectives, different everything, different way of thinking. And they're led by different elites, too. So, again, takes two to tango. So, don't let the hype get to you. Don't let no mis or disinfo potentially get to you. Don't get too absorbed in information that's coming out because it might not all be good information. That's all I'm saying. That's not against anybody. I'm just saying the information itself could be bad info. You got to be very leery of it, and you got to do your research, do your due diligence, and do your research to see if something is true or if it's not true. Because they can fabricate a lot of things these days. I think we all know that. And they might not even tell you if something even happened. They might call it an accident or something else, or they'll pull back from the brink at the last minute, or whatever. Things happen and things change. So we haven't had our collapse and our internal conflict. Again, that's the best metric by which you can judge anything in the world. So I'm going to leave it at that. I love you all, each and every one of you. Y'all be blessed. Thank you for coming. Y'all have a good one.